I think it's time. Okay, 6:30. Welcome to Canyon County's Logic and Accuracy Test. This is specified by the state of Idaho. We put this on before every election. I've lost count at this point, but this would be somewhere over 40 LNAs that I've done since I've been here. As I recall, the largest crowd we've ever had here is 4, and usually we have none. So we talk to ourselves. So actually, I think the whole crew is really excited to have some people here to where we can demonstrate and actually have an audience. So Kylie, are we ready to bring the test deck out?
Yep, we're all ready. Do you want to pass this around, or does anybody want to see this? This is the zero report for the machines.
It is a what again?
It's a zero report. Zero report.
What is
It
that?
just lets us know that no one has voted on the machine. So there's a 0 on all of the vote section of it.
Basically, it's like a ballot box that's empty.
It's reset.
Yeah, just letting you know there's nothing there.
Okay.
So she's getting the test deck out of the vault. We'll bring that out. She'll tell you about it, but while she's bringing that out, a test deck is every possible combination of votes that there can be. So for this particular election, that's somewhere over 4,000 ballots. We're going to run those all tonight. We're going to run them on 2 machines. It'll probably take about, 40 minutes. But we're going to go through, while that's happening, we'll get started with that so you can see that process. While that's going on, we'll go through the other functions that we have to run an election. Wireless mics are really nice.
Again, what was this again? I forgot what you called this.
This is a test deck. It is ballots with every,
DECK.
pardon me?
DECK. I'm hard of hearing that.
Test deck, D-E-C-K, yeah.
Okay.
Every possible way to vote that there could be.
So
Where'd you find that?
Pardon?
Where'd you find the test deck?
We
is it,
made,
Oh, we have a vault over here. We call it the vault. We pulled it out of the vault. That's where we store everything that needs to be locked up so that no one can tamper with it. And I made the test deck, so we have a pattern that we have to mark on the test deck. And then it came out to 2,397 pages. So that's why it's so heavy. So I'm gonna go ahead and run that through these 2 machines right here. Hopefully it won't take too long.
okay, go ahead and get started. Do you want to do something now, or do you want Brandy or
I think the polling locations, make sure this is set up and ready to go.
Brandy, you want to throw it in while she's
And how many options were there?
ballots. How many ballots? There's 2,397 ballots.
2,397.
Hi, guys. Welcome. So I'm just gonna, while she's doing this, I'm gonna go over kind of what we did during the reapportionment, redistricting, precincts, all of that stuff. You guys probably have received the cards. Things have changed. So we're just gonna go broad strokes over it. If you have questions, wait till the end and then I'll answer those questions that you do have. I probably have an explanation for most of it. Okay. So this is our Canyon County map over here. As you can see, it's very colorful and split up in different ways. When we do redistricting, what happens is every 10 years during the census, they go around and they gather these reports and kind of find out who's living where and what our population is, which you guys are probably fully aware of. You all look about the age that you've been through this maybe once or twice before going through census. So when that's done, the report goes back to the legislation and the commission is put together of Half of them are Democrats and half of them are Republicans, and they decide on legislative district boundaries. Those boundaries were drawn by them and decided on by them. We actually didn't agree with the boundaries that were set forth. We actually filed a lawsuit, the county, so it's several other counties, because we didn't agree with how it looked. That went to court and we were basically denied. So we had to push forward with what was given to us. Once that hits the board, we hit the ground rolling. Excuse me, I've been talking all day. I've already done 2 trainings today for poll workers, so if I get humbled, I'm sorry. But that's when we have to start creating our commissioner district boundaries. And so the commissioner district boundaries are separated into three separate districts. They all have to be within a certain percentage of population. So not resident or voters, but actual residents who live within the county. So this doesn't show it very well. Another map would, but it's separated into 3 based on population. And then after that's finished and it's approved through the BOCC, which is the Board of County Commissioners, then we go into precincts. When we look at precincts, the only criteria that we have is that every county has to have 2 precincts. We used to have 64 precincts here in Canyon County. Didn't really make a whole lot of sense because we don't have 64 polling locations that are open for us to use. The reason for that is because we have everything ADA compliant. And polling locations, ADA compliance is a lot more complex in comparative to, just building a structure. We have a really thick book about that we have to go through. The pressure on a door, for instance, if it's within a certain number, it's not ADA compliant and we can't use that polling location. So some of the things that you commonly don't think of are things we have to look at. So when we went from 64 polling locations, or not polling locations, precincts, and we now have 51. The reason we reduced it is also to follow our school district boundaries. So what we have in Canyon County are tax code areas, which are the areas that you're taxed on based on where you live. We have the most taxing districts in the entire state. Out of 44 counties, Canyon County is the most complex, which puts a lot of pressure on us and creates more ballot styles out there for you guys to vote on. So we're trying to reduce the ballot styles. When we do so, we're reducing error. Poll worker error, handing out the wrong ballot, things like that. So we're trying to reduce the amount of error in Canyon County. So we created 51 precincts with that in mind, but we also tried to consider growth as well as population, even though that's not one of our criteria. Here out in perhaps Parma is not going to match the amount of people that we have in Nampa. So we tried to even it out as best we could, but also stay within a reasonable driving range for somebody to get to that polling location. The other thing that we had to do was also consider the size of the polling locations and how many people we can place inside of them. For instance, this is a big one, and I'm going to bring it up now. East Canyon Elementary School can't take that many people in. Number one, they have school during the day, and there's going to be a bunch of students in there. We don't want 5,000, 6,000 voters trying to get into that polling location. So I tried to take a smaller location or precinct and then put them into that location. And the people in that precinct, which happens to be precinct 12, we moved them down and put them in a bigger location so they can encompass that amount of people. We are currently looking for a good location in 12. I know that Chris and I have worked really hard on it. Haley has worked really hard on it, and we do have some really good leads. We don't have an answer for you right now, but hopefully for 2023, we'll be able to open and expand some of those polling locations for you.
So, just to add to that, COVID caused a real problem. We lost several places that would not allow us to come in and vote because of COVID. Some of those locations have not let us back yet. We're hopeful that they do. We also lost some school districts, so we got the boot out of some schools. So between COVID and the DOJ, ADA requirements, we have had a really tough road to hoe when it comes to finding polling places. Like Brandy mentioned, we're working at trying to get a better, more consistent. The way we've had to move people around, jerk them around from polling place to polling place, we have to send out cards every
Does anybody have any questions for me about redistricting or the map?
You mentioned that, there was a disagreement with the redistricting to start with. What was it? I mean,
So Chris can probably tap in more on that, that when we filed the lawsuit, basically the commission or the Department of Justice said, or was it DOJ? I don't even know who voted on it at that point, but they said, no, we're sticking with it. I think it had something to do with the time frame, but I don't really know. I just got the green light to, hey, you gotta hit the ground running and start making commissioner districts, and that's what we did.
With 243,000 population in Canyon County, with this reapportionment, we actually ended up with less representation, which makes no sense whatsoever to me. So that was the main reason that we, because what happened was now we share with 4 different counties. I think that's kind of crazy, but at any rate, that's what we ended up with. Yes, it's a commission that did it. It's split between Republicans, Democrats. When we sued, Ada County sued as well. It went to the Supreme Court and they overruled it. So we're stuck with what we have.
What do you mean by representation?
We should have gained at least one representative in the state house.
Okay.
We didn't. And there was some thought we could even gain a Senate seat, but we did not.
Yes, sir.
for polling locations, are you looking at conventions, schools, and churches? Are you looking at maybe businesses that have maybe more space?
Yeah, so to repeat his question, I'm gonna paraphrase briefly. What other locations or what type of locations that we're looking for or looking at currently? We have looked at schools. We've used, actually, most of the locations we're currently using are churches. Businesses, the problem that we have is that commitment. The 4 times a year and they don't really know. And so we are taking every avenue possible. We have a lot of people that just don't respond to us, honestly. I don't know why.
But you are soliciting.
Absolutely. Anytime we hear of a possible good location that appears to be ADA compliant, we'll go out there and we'll do some research. Chris and I have actually made personal visits to locations, peer through windows to try to see if something even looks like it could be compliant, even in open businesses. So we are actively searching for more locations. If you guys happen to know of something that is centrally located that would be willing to open their doors for us and it appears to be ADA compliant, we'll definitely put it on our list and go out and investigate and see if it's something that we could use in the future.
We've been in 2 car dealerships. We're in only one right now, I believe.
We actually removed ourselves from one car dealership due to the location that we were put in. There wasn't enough room for social distancing, and it made it really, really difficult for our machines to work in this small glass room because it got so hot in the summertime. So we pulled out of that one. I did ask to use a different room, and I haven't been given the okay. Yes.
Do you have enough poll workers?
Right now, I'm going to be honest, May has been a little bit difficult. I think it has to do with everybody going on vacation. A lot of their kids are graduating, doing a lot of family trips. Have a lot less this time. So I encourage everybody, go online to canyoncounty.org and put in a poll work application. I can probably get you to work. Put some brief criteria on there of where you like to go work. And we can get people in there. Absolutely. I do need people. Yes, sir.
When I registered, they had that question on the registration. You guys see that?
That's put through to his question is when you registered online, there is an option that says I'm interested or not interested in being a poll worker. I've never personally seen it, to be honest with you. So it's best to just go online on our platform and put in the request or the application there. Like I said, I could probably use a handful of people right now. So if you're interested, definitely. Sir?
I just had a question about what you use the Verity scan, is that what that's called? Or what you
Kylie, would you like to confirm?
Verity scan.
The Verity scan. You have a question about Verity?
These
So
are-
that's what you're doing now? So is that what you normally do with ballots? I guess
This is used mainly for absentee ballots. When we get them back, when they come back in the mail on election day, we open them all up, and this is the equipment that scans all of that.
So when you count, tabulate all the ballots from the other locations, you don't use that?
No, those are scanned through our scanners over here that go out to each precinct.
Oh,
And then at the end of the night, they come back and we remove the drive from them and
We'll
that
go through
drive, yeah, we'll go through the whole process.
Can I ask you a question, since you're already there?
Yeah.
I noticed when you first started over on this machine, it stopped and you had to bring everything out. What about those ballots that was counted?
They weren't counted. I discarded the batch because it didn't run them through correctly and then we
Is that
restarted.
recorded then?
You can see when you go into like the audit log, every step that I took. So it will say like that I discarded a badge or that you saved a badge. So it walks through all of those
They
things.
would tell you that you had discarded the batch?
Yep.
Okay, and I also noticed that as it was going through, every once in a while, they pop up and then come back down and start scanning again.
What would pop up?
The top piece that goes up in the air, to allow those to go in. You didn't do anything, you just did it.
I think you're saying the bottom tray, like a pause and then with
Bottom tray goes up when it gets lighter.
Yeah, it moves it up towards it has to move it up towards these rollers, which is what it's not about.
Okay, that's what happened. Remove to roll.
So this is a good example of what I'm gonna do right now. This batch right here stopped without scanning all of them because one of the rollers didn't catch the paper and it took too long to pull it through. And so it said that it couldn't pull it through. So what ends up happening when I do that, instead of saving what did go through, I end up discarding the whole batch and running it through again because we don't want to run half batches. So I don't want to, like if it pulled one through that I wasn't aware of, I don't want it to catch on something weird. So I'm gonna run the whole batch again, just so there's no mistakes.
All right, will it stop it again?
Hopefully not.
All right. well,
It
thank
just
you.
depends on if the roller decides it wants to grab the paper. Sometimes the paper's a little slippery. Yes?
On the batch, are those enveloped like per batch? And so we could say this is batch B17, so later on, if there was an issue with a specific batch, you know exactly which ballots were in that batch or which were not.
You can put papers in between them. I haven't in the past put papers in between them because we run the whole batch again if something goes wrong. So there hasn't been a need for that. We could do that and you could, because you can go back into here and see how many were in each batch specifically.
This is like you were talking about the audit log,
Mhm.
but I didn't know like if 6 months later or somebody wanted to look at it, if they'd be, this was the batch that the audit log says that you have to do something to.
You could see that on the computer. They do end up just in like one of these bags all together at the end of the night. That's how we've done it in the past.
So when it goes through the machine, it's making a digital copy of it?
It does, it
Or
takes,
is it counting it at that time?
it's doing both. So this, you can see an image, you can see an image of it over here. It takes of every single ballot front and back. And then it's also counting it. So when this is all done, I will take one of these drives and load all the results onto it. And then we'll transfer this drive to the computer that loads all of the count together.
So can you see who's ahead, who the candidates are when that's going?
I could if I went into the report section, but to be honest, there's never
We,
enough time over
We
here.
do not.
Chris says we do not, so you don't.
We do not look at the reports. There is a report section, but it's not, we don't do anything till it gets to our computer that counts it all together.
We generally have people here and we always have reporters here. So the less we know, the better, right?
And plus you guys live stream it the whole time, like, because I helped with the last presidential election with the absentee stuff, and I think there's what, 2 or 3 cameras the whole time.
Let's get it going or we're
Go
gonna
ahead,
be here all
get
night.
going. This is not related to how that works. I see that those, ballots that are going through are different than, the sample ballot. primary election ballots, with that degree, that we had a number of copies, they would give me one, and I went online, tried to see if you could get official ballots online. I wasn't able to get that, but I did get a sample ballot, said sample instead of official. And the question I have then is, could that I think it was about an 8.5 by 11 paper, the ability to make it the same size as those sheets. Could it be modified because it was white? I scanned the sample ballot that I printed off, and it showed obvious different color whiteness than that sheet that indicated that it was a official. Is there any way for fraud to take place?
This test deck, number one, it's not paper that you would go down to Absentee and get. It has these codes, and it has a watermark. And that cannot be copied.
All right.
And those are produced from the ballot that is put through the scanner. I mean, from the voter comes in, or handed a folder that they put in the video camera thing that they can vote from, and then they take and get their ballot out and put it back in their folder, and then they go to where the scanner is, right? And then they have to take that and put it in the scanner. And then the person indicates or verifies that you are the person and you voted and you're done. Well, maybe you do get a receipt or something if you want. But we verify that we're the ones, or you guys verify that we're the voters are the ones that stuck it in the scanner, correct?
Yes.
And the scanner puts what we indicated on our ballot on that, correct?
I actually have a whole explanation. If you guys want me to go through that, and then if you guys have more questions about the machines when I'm done that I didn't cover, then I can cover that, because that's one of the things I actually hit and explain in depth with my explanation of all of the equipment. If you're okay with that, and then if I don't answer your question, then I can
You
answer
know,
it from there.
honestly, I probably won't remember every detail, but all I want to know is there any possibility that what I marked with the voting machine being modified by that system?
So the scanners that are going on right now, this is called your central scan. So this
The
is
what?
central scan.
Okay,
So in these machines, we run any paper curbside ballots that we may have, and we also run absentee ballots. When you're talking about the polling location, you're
Okay.
talking about a precinct scanner. So this is tabulating at the precinct. So if your ballot isn't able to be read, say it prints light, or say something happens that this machine cannot read it, it's gonna spit it out right in front of you, so you know, nope, that's not right. You can go fix the error, get a new ballot summary, put it in. As soon as you see the flag and it says you have voted, this is counted.
This is actually created to read the words that you're reading on your ballot summary. So if you were to take a pen and mark through those words, it wouldn't be able to read it. It's reading the same human words as you
Marks.
would on
So
your
there's
ballot
no
summary.
way that what I marked on my ballot could be reran through the machine without there being an error.
Correct. It's also,
So
it has that
I-
QR code in the
It
top
will
left.
only allow me wherever I put my mark to vote one time,
One time.
based upon my
That's-
mark as well as the codes, or the barcodes, or markings, the watermarks, or the barcodes, or the flies, or whatever that are on the paper, right?
So it's only going to let you vote at one ballot.
Yeah.
If you were to come through and try and get another barcode ticket from the e-poll book, it will immediately say you have already voted. It won't even let the poll worker move forward. There's no way for them to go forward once you've already voted.
Right.
It's the same as if you requested an absentee and you say, oh, I forgot it at home, but I'm at work and I don't know if I'm gonna get off in time, so I'd like to vote here at the precinct. Can you spoil my ballot? Even if you don't have the ballot with you, you can spoil it, because on those machines, we're able to hit no, they did not bring their ballot, and immediately spoil it. So even if you were to run home really quick, try and grab your absentee ballot and run it through, the unique barcode that is on the absentee ballot will immediately show that it's been spoiled before we voted, and it'll kick it right back down. Okay.
So, yeah, there's no way that you vote twice the same day.
Correct. So my name is Kaylee Hicks. I'm the election supervisor here in Canyon County, and I want to go over the machines because I see a lot of misinformation. I hear a lot of misinformation. We get a lot of phone calls. The first thing I want to identify is that this is Hart Ferry Duo system. This is not Dominion. Dominion is not certified in Idaho. This is the Hart equipment. We needed to upgrade our equipment because when we were with the ESNS, we were at the end of that software life, so there was no way to upgrade. So we looked at what would be the best option for Canyon County voters. The last election that was similar to this was in 2018, and we had over 2,000 improperly marked ballots. That means they put an X in the circle, they wrote something, but they did not follow the instructions. We were here till about 6:30 in the morning doing resolution on those ballots. What that means is it has to be given to two individuals. One is marking while the other one is reading, and then it's ran back through. So if we don't know your intent, if you put a circle around one circle and you put an X around the other circle, we can't determine what your vote was or what you wanted, so that would go blank. Because they are only able to mark it if we know the voter intent. Therefore, when we saw the duos, we felt that this would be the best option because this prints exactly the way that you want to vote. You're able to verify, and then when you submit it into the precinct scanner, you know right then and there your vote has been cast. It's held on a V drive that's under this locked compartment. Poll workers do not have the keys. The only individuals who have the keys are us here at this office. We take another measure and we put a seal lock on here that's tamper-proof and it's identified with a unique number that's locked before it even leaves our office. Walk over here and I'll show you. So chain of custody is a big thing when it comes to elections and elections equipment, because the minute that it leaves you, how do you know that nobody's touched it? How do you know nobody's got a screwdriver on in there? So Canyon County actually created this seal lock log. It logs every step that these machines take, from when we prepare it, when it goes on the delivery truck, when it's delivered to the polling location, when it's transported back, and then we verify that everything stays the same. For any event, if this seal lock is ever broken, the machine is removed from the election, it's not used, and we put a new one out. That way it's not compromised. This log will show every step of the way, and we do it with our controllers, our scanners, and our e-poll books. And that's just to show chain of custody throughout the entire election. We know exactly what happened, where the machines were, that the serial numbers logged, seal locks are logged, and when the machines are closed, we even seal lock the handles to make sure no one was able to come in, undo those when someone wasn't there. Yes.
So you mentioned when, does it describe the machine, like the physical construction, maybe the firmware, I noticed on the zero report, you have BIOS. Does it describe that?
Does what describe it, the seal log?
Yeah, your log, like the description of the machine.
The reports that print out from these machines, the zero report, the opening, and then the closing polls report, those actually print those. The firmware and
So
the
give you the
version.
firmware, so you can test that before and after the vote.
Mhm. Yeah, and it'll do the ballots cast, ballots
And you
issued.
have a log.
Yes.
If the seal is broken on the machine, people have already been thrown out there, they rebuild it, what happens to the
So if the seal's broken, we'll know before we even open the polls, because that is the first thing poll workers are to do is check their equipment and make sure that none of the seals are broken. So that would be, if that were to happen, and it has not, we would actually risk opening the polls later to get them a new scanner and allowing someone to vote on a compromised machine.
So maybe be a good place to say that everything here, right down the line, has to match up.
Yeah.
In other words, every ballot is accounted for, every single one, from start to finish.
So when you guys go into a polling,
Sorry, I just wanted to add really quick, because I get what, I think I got what your question was. If somebody had already cast their ballots in there and somehow that seal broke, there's already ballots cast, what we would do is we would shut that down, wait till the end of the day, bring another one out, and then we would take those ballots and bring them in here, and then count them in here to make sure that those ballots are still counted, and they're counted off that paper instead of off the V drive. So we would make sure that they are still accurate and valid. Yeah,
yeah, okay, sorry about that. And then we even have a place on here for them to log in, so they can say, you know, at this voter, I'm not sure how it would happen, but they can log everything that happened. So when you guys go to the polling location, you guys are gonna check in on the e-poll books. This is a 10x e-poll book. That's the software that we use. It's similar to Ada County. And in the poll books, these are the only ones that are connected to the internet. Because I know everyone is afraid that the hard equipment is connected to the internet. It is absolutely not. This is connected to a mobile Wi-Fi jetpack that Canyon County provides. It's password protected. The only data that is stored on these electronic poll books is voter registration information. I'm not sure if you're aware, but your voter registration information is public record. So if I were to come and do a public records request for everyone who's registered in Canyon County, other than those who are approved by the prosecuting attorney to be secured voters, you would be on the list, the same thing that's on here. If someone were to get a hold of this e-poll book and run away and think that they got a hold of elections equipment, we actually have a database here in our office where we can shut that down, remove the app to where they can't even access the app. So this logs your check-in. I can see the time right down to the second when you checked in, when you signed for your ballot. This prints out a ballot barcode ticket. What that ticket does is tells the controller what ballot you are supposed to be issued. So this helps remove the margin of error of someone giving you the improper ballot, as you would if you were in paper ballots. They scan that barcode, they verify that it matches what pulls up on the screen, and then this provides a unique 5-number access code that tells this machine which ballot needs to be opened. Now this machine, everyone, is called a Duo. It is a fancy pencil. And all it is to ensure that what you marked on your ballot is actually being cast. The machine understands it because it's in the form that machine can read. This holds no record. If I unplug it, there's no way to go back in and see everybody, how they voted, reprint ballots, recreate ballots. This is just a pencil. Once you get over.
Okay, time out. So what are you saying is that's the machine that we vote on, and this one here verifies that is a readable ballot?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
You vote on this.
This is what tells you, coming from here, this tells you what ballot, actually it doesn't come from there. You get a ticket from there, because that's
Okay.
on the internet.
Okay.
This is not. You get a ticket, and it has a number on there to ensure that that voter gets the right ballot. That's all this machine
Okay.
does.
All right.
It gives them, make sure they get the right ballot. They get a blank sheet of paper. And Then, and by the way, while we're stopped here, Penix is a statewide program. We don't have a choice. That is statewide.
So the plain paper that you get, which is called the voter record, this is a special kind of paper that we can only purchase from CART. It's not available at Office Depot, it's not available at taxes, I can't just run down and grab more ballot paper. This is a thermal, special weighted paper that only Depot machines read. So if we run out, I can't run and get any more ballots, so we obviously stock a lot. So you submit that in there. These machines can be converted to be ADA accessible. So there's a remote that you can use if you need Braille. We have headphones if you need the ballot read to you. It even has a port for puff and sit for the tactile buttons that you can use if you need like a yes or no. But the remote also has a wheel and other items that you can use. So that way every voter, when they go to the polling location, can vote in the same manner and not have to vote on a different machine or in a different manner than everyone else. Once you review your choices, it prints the ballot record. You take the ballot summary over to the precinct scanner, submit it. As long as there's no issue with it reading, you'll see a flag and it'll say you have voted. You get your voted sticker, the poll worker will say, hey, the next has voted. Thank you, have a great day. Then once the polls are closed, they run a closing the polls report. They close the machines. They're transported back to our office where we remove the B drive that's in here. It's an encrypted B drive that we get from CART, and it goes into count.
Do you have this process? Because
On
this
that
is important to
handout
what
that was
we're
on your
asking.
chair,
Do you have it in writing anywhere?
that handout on your chair,
That's on here?
that blue sheet,
Okay,
that describes
Because
everything
I
I'm
would
talking
like to take and remember this so that I can repel the people who sent me here to take a report.
Definitely. So that's why I
I
provided
would
that.
like to take and be able to take and refresh my team brain.
I have more that you can distribute as well.
Okay,
And if
okay.
you look on the back, that's actually information from CART regarding their machines versus the other.
Okay.
So once these machines come back, we verify the seal lock is the same as when it left here. We unlock, we pull this D drive.
Right.
It gets inserted into the count machine. It cannot be opened or read until we have the very key. This key is only within our office. It's not provided to poll workers. It's not provided to our clerk. No one has access to this but us inside the vault.
So you have to have a key and a thumb drive.
A key, a thumb drive, and then a login to the count software.
That's the key.
This is the key. And then that's the B drive. Yes.
Makes the program valid.
HART. So we,
H-A-R-T.
yep, H-A-R-T, it's called HART Very Build. So we have Very Build, Very Count, and then Very Duo system.
And then how do you get that information?
That's my next step. So, once we've tabulated early voting, absentee, that's another thing I hear, we count every single absentee, they're not provisional. Idaho is one of 6 states that does not have provisional ballots, that's why we have election day registration. So if you absentee vote, you 100% cast your ballot the same way as if you were in the polling location. We count every single ballot, we don't leave here until every single ballot is counted. Once all of the precincts are back, everything has been tabulated, the results are ready, we actually use this drive. It's called a DataSure drive. This is a special USB drive that has a PIN lock that you have to enter to access. We pull the results off that computer because it's not connected to the internet, and this is what we use to put the results on our website. The reason we use this is because this is protected against viruses and malware. Because it is going into a machine with the internet, we want to make sure nothing gets loaded on this from the internet and then put back in the count machine. So this keeps our count machine secure. And that's how they go from everything not on the internet to results on the internet.
Is there any other access to the website other than that? You know, someone else should get on the internet and get on the website and get all different numbers, regardless of what that.
You know, there is always a potential when you're on the internet for someone to attempt and hack. I know that we've joined CISA, off the top of my head, I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but that is nationwide. They look at the security of elections, they watch the internet activity, they sit in the Capitol in Boise, and they watch all of the activity for the websites to be sure no one's hacking into it. And our IT department is also aware of everything going on with that way, in case someone were to have to change results or redirect our website somewhere.
So does the IT department look at the results before they upload it to the website, and then compare with what's actually on the website? So it's the same request, they're not looking at it all?
No, it's done within our office, and then we also have the canvas that certifies the results with the board.
I think it's done in the office, but if somebody were to hack and change the stuff that's on the website, anybody looking at what's on the website versus that USB drive.
So typically what we do, and Joe actually brought up a good point, is when we upload the results, it's done through the Secretary of State's system.
Right.
So we send it to the Secretary of State, and it's through their procedures that we upload that information. And so it's, I know that they whitelist everything. There's certain things I don't understand about internet security, but I know that we send it to them. But if something were to be changed and we were aware of it, we have the results also here to compare to and say, wait a minute, something got messed with. That's where the state, that's where the state comes in.
Yeah.
The results that are on the Canyon County election website aren't necessarily official anyways, correct? They're just kind of like general public information, because I know it's like anytime something that's uploaded, the time changes on the website, and the last upload is at this time, that's just more general knowledge, it's not.
Yeah, they are not certified until we conduct a canvas and it's signed off by the Board of County Commissioners. So the canvas is what certifies the results and makes them official. Yes.
So the machine, the computer you said that you bring the paper thumb drive, you plug it in your account, you said that's not connected to the internet. So are you saying those machines have no network capability at all? No Wi-Fi, no other, in the hardware itself?
Right, it's right here. It's just got to plug right into the wall. That's all you see is the 4 plugs. This is count, this machine right here.
I'm talking about the computer itself. It has no.
How does it send the data to the Secretary of State?
So we
Do you take that
extract
physically
the
to the
data from
Secretary of
count.
State, or do you
No.
put that?
We load this on our work computer.
I understand you're feeding it to it. I'm talking about the construction of the computer itself has no network capability.
No.
Our count system, so this one and these that we're using right now came directly from HARD. So they had to go through a whole process to make sure that everything was locked down on all of them. They don't have any internet and they can't connect to any Wi-Fi at all. So we can't use a regular computer that we would just purchase.
It was this big system used in November 2020.
Subsystem, same system.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
Maybe I could ask you this, I'm just looking at what websites you have here in the office. You got CC Elections Office, I think it's actually normal.
Yeah.
And then you've got CC Zoom, is that
CC what?
Zoom
Where are you looking at that?
on my settings, you've got a signal coming out of something here. Oh, it's CC.
I think that's for the courthouse Zoom
It could be
calls.
the courthouse, because we're connected with, we have CC elections, then you have Canyon County Guest, you have Canyon County. There's several different Wi-Fis, but we actually have a unit called a Meraki unit that tunnels our internet connection, just so nothing else is passing through that. And past that, I'm sorry, I am not IT. I don't know where the tunnel goes or what it looks like, but the Meraki unit makes sure that no one else is accessing our internet or Canyon
Is
County.
that the MERAKI?
MERAKI, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't even have a copper on
Is it?
it. Marky setup is what it says.
So ours is called Canyon County Elections. So CC Elections is our Meraki unit.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and have to.
If you can, then I need to know.
I know. Oh, somebody shut it off real quick.
I hit the button on my thigh.
Zoom is the meeting, remote meeting thing that we use.
Any other questions?
How does the ballot get its information,
So it's all from the V drives. So the V drives are created from Verity Build, and that holds the election data. So when we put the V drive in there before they leave this office, the same thing as the scanner is done with the controller. So it's loaded. In order to load the election, you have to have that blue Verity key that I showed you, and that drive. Plus, you also have to have the codes that we make unique for every election. So even if you were to get a hold of an old code, it never worked. It would change it each election.
So the company part is contracted to create the software for the ballots. And how does that data get to you? Do they send it in the mail, FedEx?
So
Do they send it
it's,
over the internet?
it's actually one of the, considered a hard drive. So it was a hard drive that was installed. So it was sent to us and then Hart came out and installed it and put it onto our
So
PC.
every single election they come and
No, it's hardware that stays. So it's in that PC right there. There's one on
but
top.
there's different names every time there's an election, there's different things you vote on.
So that's
How
in
does
Verity
that-
Build. And that's how we
Does
create
that
it. That
Who does
is
that?
created by our office, our technical administrator.
So, does the system have any, detection of, abnormal, voting data being, passed from, one place to another onto the, is there any monitoring of the election data being recorded from any poll in the 48 counties and all the polls in those counties, such that it would detect abnormal voting patterns? Is that a understood question?
To an extent, so I can't see what other counties are doing, but when we're here on election night, those are on election day and election night, the e-poll-ups, we have software where we can watch those in live time, so we can see how much the battery's charged, we can see the amount of check-ins, the time of the check-in, who checked you in, your signature, right to the second. That counts, and that has to match what this scanner comes out. If there's any discrepancy between who is checked in there and how many ballots are cast, we have to look into it. Obviously, there are times where that can be different because you have people that may have gone through, thought it was a different election and decided they're not gonna vote. So they checked in, they got a ballot, they took it with them, threw it away. But we have yet to find where this does not match up with our scanner.
Okay, but that's important. But what's also important is the actual markings of the voter for the candidates of choice being the information that gets recorded in the Secretary of State's office is the same as all those voters made when they cast their vote. And what happened, according to reports of investigations and affidavits, is that there were large conversions of
Yeah, that happened in the United States. It did not happen in Canyon County. It did not happen in Idaho. And there's reports out there that are absolute lies that say that 5 to 7% of the vote right here in Canyon County was changed.
Okay.
That's a lie. It did not happen. It did not happen in the state of
does
Idaho.
the system have, the question is, does system?
What we have is the logs that track it all the way through. And so it has to match up.
It has, yeah.
And we have audit logs on that computer. We have audit logs in Precinct Central, which tells us every move anybody's made on the poll book. I can see any move anybody makes on these
So
computers.
you have,
audit
the
logs.
answer is you have tracking logs.
We have logs, there's so many reports that'll blow your mind.
Mhm.
So we're ready to move on. So Kylie, if you kind of explain what's going on right now, because this count is finished.
Okay, so I ran all the ballots, that's that stack over there, we can look inside the bag if we want to show that it's empty. So I went in to write ballots, it shows all the batches that I ran, and that computer shows the same, I can pull it up on there as well. And I'm gonna go ahead and take one of our V drives, every single one of these V drives has been set up with this current election on it. You have to do the same thing you do on all these machines, which is you have to have this key in order to even write the V drive. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the V drive in here.
So that machine shows 2397 ballots.
Well, I'm going to load them onto this V drive and I'm gonna put it onto that computer over there, and that's where it's gonna put the report of all the ballots. It says it right here also, ballots written 2,397.
So with the ballots that you started with, does one person count all those paper ballots, or is there two people to say, this is how many ballots we're starting off with?
With the test deck or with, you mean like absentees?
Well, yeah, but they come through like there and you're ready to scan them.
We usually have multiple people that handle ballots, so there's always two people that are around. I run them, but there's always someone here that's kind of monitoring the situation with me.
So tell you how many ballots are here, and then you still know the matching in the system.
Oh, yes, so our 10X, or not 10X, yeah, 10X, when we run everything through, when the ballots come in, we scan them all into our system. So the system knows exactly how many ballots I'm supposed to be scanning. So they match up, and if they don't match up, we have to figure out why they don't match up. So we never move forward until the numbers are the same.
I missed something. You have two drives there.
I do. This is the V drive that has the information on it from the count, and this is the key. So in order to do anything, I have to have this key.
Just barely keep.
That's the Verity key, yeah.
So that in effect is your server, right? Which is one you do now.
Yes. This is what we call count and build. There are two programs on the same one. So I go ahead and build the ballot on this one, and it's also what counts everything at the end of the night. And you can see this number right here. If anyone wants to look at it, you can come closer. This is 2397. It's also going to say, do you want to print a zero report? We can go ahead and print it if we want, but everything, so this is 0 to 0 registered. And now I'm going to tabulate it. And the number went up to 2397. So then at this point, this is gonna take a minute. I gotta go through the write-ins. So I have to, for write-in votes, we have to individually go in and accept them because we have to read the write-in and make sure it's valid. So in order for someone to be a write-in, you have to sign up to be a write-in. You can't just, Mickey Mouse can't win. Like you have to apply to be a write-in. So I have to go in and individually accept the correct names that are written on the ballot. So I'm gonna do that now. Do you wanna do that?
Now, the voter, indicates a write-in.
Yes,
Correct.
you have to mark the write-in box and then
Okay,
the
and
name.
then that is an indication you need to look at that ballot.
Yeah, so it logs every write-in, the system will log every write-in that comes through. Whether or
Okay.
not it's valid is up to us to read the name and make sure that it's the right one.
Hey, question.
Yes,
Well, she's doing that. The stuff that needs to be secured, the USB data share drives and the V drives, things like that, you said you put them in the vault. Is it actually a vault or is it a room with a drop down seal?
It's a vault,
It's actually like a safe. So-
Yeah. and there's a log from when we go in and out, time, reason being, and it has to have 2 people each time. We actually have a camera in there that is also on security 24/7. And that's where we store anything that has to do with the election that could potentially compromise the election.
Those drives will only work on this equipment. You couldn't plug it into your computer.
No, but they're putting the store in there as well, right? It's not being used out here.
I don't think so.
The drives are locked in there when it's not being in use, and then we actually have another vault inside our garage here with all of our supplies, where there's another door in there that locks, and that's where all of our controllers and our scanners and our poll books are kept.
Thank
Are you guys both elected officials?
No.
You're not? Okay. How long have you guys been working here doing this?
I actually started April 24th, 2018.
You're having an anniversary.
Yeah, yesterday.
Did you get roses from your boss?
Yes,
Yeah.
always. Pretty
This
red
is
one.
suggestion.
Nobody's bought here. Now, I tell you, this crew is actually, when I came into office almost 12 years ago, I had about 120 years of institutional knowledge in this office. And unfortunately, most of those people were at retirement time. So all of a sudden, I went from 120 years of institutional knowledge to about 2. Now, that being said, the crew that I have right now is the best crew I've ever had, without question. So,
You do background checks and stuff like that on them?
no, we go out to the state pen. Yes, we do.
Fresh out of prison.
We have a former law enforcement officer in the county that does all the background checks.
How many scanners do we have?
Total, 79. So we have backups. And we have 79 controllers, 450 duos, and 250 poll books.
So when they send these scanners out to the precincts or whatever, if one has a problem, they have to order another one in? Or how-
They notify us that they're having an issue, and then we have what we call election day runners. So we prep the machine, we log the seal lock on the drive area, we close the machine, we lock the outside, we also seal lock the handle. That way, they're just double verification. That's all provided with the form. They bring it out, they swap out the machine, they'll wait until there's nobody getting ready to cast a ballot, but they'll also explain, we have to switch this out because we're having an issue. You guys will wait momentarily, and they do it all in front of the voters.
Okay,
Yes.
so for early voting, what happens? Do we run the scanners every day or?
So early voting, what ends up happening is there's a report that we run on the e-poll books that brings anybody who did election day registration or who updated their registration and who voted, that gets imported into our voter registration system. And then the precinct scanners, they log the count at the end of the night on our seal lock log. That one looks a little bit different than the precinct because you got several days. And then they're stored under lock and key, and then alarm code if the building has it, or they have also, we provide cameras if we need to, if there's not something there.
So
But
then,
no, those are not counted on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It changes by the state, depending on the election and what type of election, how many votes, that type of thing. Generally speaking, we can only tabulate those absentees the day of the election.
Okay. Yeah, so when I say they look at the screen, if you guys look at this when you get up, you'll see ballots, sheets, and then lifetime. So it'll tell you a lifetime of how many ballots it's run. But it'll tell you how many ballots it's run that day. So they log that number. That way when they fire it up the next day, if there's anything additional, so they have 239, they open it the next day and somehow there's 245, it's compromised, it's been tampered with, they call us immediately.
Okay, but I'm not quite understanding what happens, for early voting, so when they come here, they would use one of these machines?
Mhm.
Yes,
It would be the same setup.
but you just wanna go through the scanner every day.
If that's pulled,
You're just gonna gather
That's
them all.
pulled on election day. So when early voting closes, the ballot bags are pulled, stored, and then the machines are actually stored in there until election day.
So you have off-site early voting locations, and what happens there?
So we have celebration right now, and so we'll have surveillance, and then they're under alarm code. We're actually gonna be on the recreation side, and so that door remains locked even when they have services. That's another reason why early voting is extremely hard to find a location, because you have to ask a location to clear their entire schedule for 2 weeks. No evening activities, no weekends. That's a lot of revenue. And then we have to find the poll workers to staff it and all of that. But they have to have a clear schedule because nothing else can go on in the building as long as we're in there, even if we're not on site there.
One of the problems that was revealed was, when, absentee ballots, are sent out like to nursing homes. There has been, cases where, some of the nursing staff or someone else than the person that, the
Yes.
absentee ballots.
It happens.
And, can these systems detect that?
No. But we look at the only thing we have is to look at the signatures. So we do that. That's a time consuming process. We go through that. Everybody in here goes to what do they call it, the handwriting class.
Yeah, so signature verification, it's actually through
And
the
fraud,
FBI.
So, and we have to, we take a lot of those out. Now, what normally happens is, so we see Agnes Smith. And she's been registered to vote for a long time, and her signature is perfect. And then as time goes on, that signature starts to degrade.
Wobbly because they.
Yes, to the point you can't hardly read it, okay? So we make a phone call at that point and find out what's going on. What usually happens is, yes, I can't write anymore.
Yeah.
My daughter did it for me, my son, whatever. That is usually the case.
Yeah.
That's a very time-consuming process because we get a lot of those.
And we actually, I'm right here, sorry.
Okay.
We
Oh, wow.
actually do another step extra and we will contact them. We'll either send a letter, if there's a phone number available, we'll contact them to have them come in and verify and sign in front of us so we can verify that it's their legitimate signature and this is their registration. If we're not able to contact them or it's too late, we'll also include a registration and say, have them re-register because they've had something that's changed their signature so that their signature is now current to what their signature is. So we try and get those as cleaned up as possible. It's just,
So, question, if you have a ballot that you can't verify, it's came in through the mail or dropped off, whatever it came, and you can't get a hold of these folks, then what happens?
well, we mail them the letter. If they don't come before election day, it's spoiled and it's not counted, it's not right. It's not even open, it's just left as signature invalid. It's marked in
You
in our voter
mark it
registration.
and it's put with the records.
Yeah, our voter registration system actually has a section when you spoil the ballot that will say invalid signature.
So by state law, and again, it's a good law, we have to account for every single ballot. Every time.
And that all has to be done before the night of election.
Or through the morning to the next day, depending on what happens.
Well, some of those could be turned in 24 hours before the election, correct?
Yeah, I mean, some are turned in
How
on
do you-
election day.
How do you find the people to do that in
We
24
do
hours?
our best, but that's where we say as soon as possible to get it in. That way, if there is an issue, we have a way to contact you, notify you, and get it fixed before election day. My rule is, please don't call me the day after the election and say something happened with my absentee. Someone didn't let me vote because they said my ID wasn't right. We're here all day and all through the night. If you have an issue at a polling location, you have an issue with your absentee, please call our office, because most of the times we can fix it if the election isn't over. But once the polls close, our hands are tied. There's not much we can do. And we go out to the polling location, so if you're willing to stay there, we can drive out, we'll rectify it right there. We just need to know before the polls close.
Okay, we have the results. Kylie, you want to go through that, and then we can allow people to take it. So we don't kill a tree, we just, but they can look at it. You want to run through it? So.
Okay. So this is the report I ran from earlier today when we ran everything compared to the report I just ran now. I went and printed it on our printer over there. So you guys can look at it if you want to. The point is to prove that the test we did earlier today matches the test that we just did now. And I can pass those around. It says the runtime on it, they're both on the same date, but it says the runtime on it. So that's the first one and that's the second one.
Okay. So while that's going around, any more questions?
Looks like on what we were talking about on the timing and signatures or any other variables, is there any feature that's allowed to, we don't need to do this because the one candidate won by so many votes that these two votes aren't going to matter?
We count every single ballot. No ballot left
Seems
behind.
unnecessary.
I thought
that was Marine.
Yeah, no ballot left behind. We got your 6 on the ballot.
One of the questions I'll bring up, because I got a lot of it today during my poll worker training, is with absentees, a lot of people think that if they have a power of attorney, that they can sign for their parent or loved one. They can't. So whatever their mark is, and I went back to, let's go back to the Civil War, when somebody couldn't read or write, what did they use? Their mark. Whatever their mark was, that was their mark. So somebody who has a hard time reading or writing or dexterity issues, whatever they put, that's their signature, and we're gonna record that in our system, and that's what we check up against. So whether they put a smiley face, that might be their signature, that's what we use. You cannot sign for your loved one's ballot, regardless of power of attorney or whatever situation you have going on there. That is their vote, we count their vote, and we make sure that it was their signature, regardless of what it looks like.
One of the big issues we have, at least what I've seen, I don't know how much you guys see, but when I come in and try to help the office out, is people don't use the same name twice.
Right.
You know, they'll put junior on the end one time and not another time. They'll put a middle initial one time and not one time. Or they'll put the whole middle name. And it goes back and forth, and then there we are, okay. Yeah, then we gotta get a hold of that person. And, we start asking people, hey, would you pick one name and stick with it?
Yeah. It's difficult, yes.
How do you scrub your voter rolls when people move in and out to each residency from place to place?
And to go with that deceased.
Yeah, so we get a report from Secretary of State that has Department of Corrections, so anybody whose voter rights have been removed, and then we go through and we verify those. We also have a report that comes from them from vitals, and so anybody who is deceased and no longer here with us, we go through that list and then we remove all of the voters from
So
that
there's no
list.
dead people on the board.
Unless we have not been notified that they've passed. But we do our best to absolutely get that rectified. If someone calls in and said, my husband passed away or my wife, or then we'll go ahead, we verify information because we have had in the past where someone says, oh, that's,
Oh, I was there.
yeah,
So a couple came in, this was with the old poll books that you wrote on and you turned it around for someone. They said, oh, Uncle Ed died. So they put a red deal there to see. Well, at the next election, Uncle Ed showed up.
yeah. So that's a little awkward. So we do have to do some verification.
Sure.
We also will sometimes, if we can't really make a connection with it, we'll do a cross-reference to see if there's an obituary. And that's how we take care of the deaths. Then we actually just did a voter cleanup with individuals who appear to live in an apartment complex or a multi-unit complex that were missing a unit number. And so, there were quite a few letters that went out recently asking people for their unit number or to re-register, otherwise they'd be removed from the rolls. And then every 4 years we do a purge. So if they're not active voters, we actually do it after every general. If they haven't been active in the last 4 years, they're removed from the rolls and they have to re-register.
And they can do that on, if they think that they're registered, they show up and they're not, they can do that on election day.
Yes, with
But
proper,
they
with proper
have to-
documentation.
Fill out an affidavit, and then what do?
They have to fill out, if they're not registered, they have to re-register. So they have to fill out
Yes,
a
but what is,
registration
do they
card.
have to, I mean, they thought that they were registered, do they have to go home and get a piece of mail or their records?
Absolutely. I've sent people home multiple times. I've sent them to the bank around the corner to get a bank statement.
Yeah.
We've even, the DMV was still open. We've even said DMV is still open, go get a copy of your license that you lost. But if they cannot provide proper form of identification and proper form of address, they cannot register on election day.
Okay,
And then the other step that we also take is if we get any return mail, we scan that into our system and the voter registration is canceled. Because if we can't make connection via mail, we don't know that they truly live there. So if it's returned as vacant or, a reason that would tell us that they're not living there, we also remove those voters as well.
The other thing on top of that also is anytime somebody moves in here, so you look on the registration card, and at the bottom it says previous address. If you put your previous address in there, the state gets a big report and sends it to the other state that you previously lived in, stating, hey, we have this person that's now currently on our rolls. Please remove them from your rolls. Whether that state chooses to do so or not is entirely up to them. But then people also send us information. Hey, John Smith moved and they don't live there anymore. They are now considered a Virginia resident. We go through and remove them from our rolls as well. So we get those lists from the state every couple months.
So correct me if I'm wrong, with the migration from the old state system to the new system, the voter rolls got cleaned up a little too bad.
Yeah.
In other words, some people came off that shouldn't have come off.
Yeah.
Now, so they've been very busy trying to get that back in line.
if somebody comes in with, a power bill or something, they have to also produce something of identification. And if that is a driver's license, that's not a star license,
It's still accepted.
it's not a set,
No, it's still accepted.
it's still accepted. Now, that doesn't prove their citizenship,
No,
but it is a same-day registration if that hasn't produced the valid documents.
So that's exactly right. The new law is gonna have it, so there's gonna be a whole bunch of bad people that can't vote.
Okay,
Yeah, if you don't have a start card, your birth certificate, your passport, and there's gonna be some older folks that, and we've seen a lot of them come in. I call it the Trump syndrome. A lot of older people started coming to vote, whether they loved him or hated him.
Yeah.
And a lot of these folks, my mother was one of them,
Yeah.
that was born in Oklahoma, did not have a birth certificate. Coming up with a birth certificate can get pretty tough because you've got to have 3 people that verified that you were actually born on this date at this place.
Yeah.
With this new law, I'm a little bit afraid, boy, I'm all about trying to clean it up so that we don't have anybody but citizens vote. But I'm afraid we're gonna have some people that have been here a long time that aren't allowed to vote, and that's gonna be a problem. I hope it's not, but I'm a little worried about it.
And regarding non-citizens, so when we get all of the data back from election day and we import that into our voter registration system, if they cannot be verified from their driver's license number or the last part of their social, they'll come up non-citizen. What we have found is there is some gap in between when they get their naturalization paperwork and notifying the DMV. So the DMV shows them as a non-citizen. The minute that they give me the last 4 of the social that they were issued, they go through as a citizen. So we do make an
So
effort to
last
send them
4
letters,
will
Yes.
enable them to.
as long as they're a citizen. Now,
Yeah.
if they come, now we put last 4 and it still comes up, then obviously
You're
they're
not
not
a citizen.
But I can tell you,
Yeah.
the most, I would say 9 times out of 10, last 4 from their naturalization, they come up as a citizen.
So I don't remember what we had, 150, 160.
Something like that.
They started sending letters out. We slowly got it back in. Here, when the legislature was in session and they wanted to know what those numbers were, I think we were 70 at that time that had not been confirmed. I think the last thing you guys told me, we were at 44 now.
Yep.
We have 44 people that voted in 2020 that we're not absolutely sure they were citizens.
It's that double-ended sword. I don't want to disenfranchise anybody from voting that has the right to vote, but I also need to make sure that they give me the verification.
But
There's a
what are those
certain amount of personal responsibility there, you know, you did what you could. And if you don't respond, then, I mean, this isn't a babysitting state.
Well,
I
and there's some severe penalties for that.
Yeah.
If we get them caught, and we, anything like that, I turn it over to our prosecuting attorney. So I've turned over, I don't know, probably over a dozen. And, most of them was because of COVID and how that got stretched out with the voting and elderly folks that voted early and then went down and tried to vote again because they forgot.
Yeah. That's why the e-poll book is good, because you can pull up the signature, date, and time and say, was this you? And then usually they're like, oh, yes, okay, and it just joggles your memory, because there is a gap.
scary because I can't even remember where I put my gloves down sometimes.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know what to do.
Who did you guys say before notified you of deaths?
The Secretary of State's office, they send out a report,
Okay, so they pull that from,
vital statistics.
okay. So whoever contacts
And
the
it's,
coroner or whatever.
it's much better than it used to be.
Yeah,
10 years ago, it wasn't all that good. We were actually at people, that was their job, actually, to go through the obituaries of 2 newspapers every day.
But after the worst case scenario, after 4 years, anybody that hasn't been voting, it's not.
Purged.
Well,
yes.
So candidates can't be poll watchers, right? Because they can't be in the same precinct. Is what I'm understanding. They can't be a poll watcher because they're off the ballot.
Let me look, because they actually just put out a new directive that I haven't had a chance to read through today, regarding, because the statute wasn't very clear, and so they were updating their directive from years ago. They sent out a new one. I just have to review it and see exactly what those new,
Poll watchers are generally someone that is on behalf of the candidate or a party.
right,
Now, it's not very smart for the candidate to be hanging around the polling place.
And the question, so the reason why I'm asking that is you are a candidate. And then the early voting is gonna be here, so.
it doesn't touch anything.
Okay, so you won't be present in this office, I imagine, during early.
No, I will be because there's just too much going on.
But that's his job too.
They're done that too. Let me tell you a story. When I first ran for this office, I ran against the incumbent. I had an interview with the Statesman newspaper. Their last question was, well, you know, the guy you're running against runs the election, right? Yes. Does that worry you? Does that bother you? I said, no, not at all. Well, why not? I said, because I know elections and I know there's nothing he can do. Doesn't bother me a bit. Was I down here checking out the elections? Did I go down and check? Well, no, I didn't. There's nothing I can do. They're always here. Do I have a key to this place? I've never had a key to get in there.
I have a funny about that too.
Get in there. Pardon?
It's really fun when the clerk leaves something in the office and you're on your way home and you live an hour away and he goes, hey, I'm locked out of the building and I forgot something. Can you come open the door? That's how I had to turn around.
It comes with.
That was just once.
It was just once. But he genuinely doesn't have a key or a way to get in the building unless we're here.
But, so, given those numbers we're giving you, for instance, the 44 that we don't know. We suspect because all the rest of them were, the other 100 and some were all naturalized citizens. So we suspect that those 44 are as well, but we don't know for sure. But the very fact that we're giving you that information should let you know that we're keeping close tabs on this. We're transparent. We want everything out there. We want a fair and honest election. And I'm talking to Phil McGrain, the Ada County clerk. He was talking about an election they had not too long ago, and it was a local election. There was a little bit of a foul up, and there almost always is. There's no such thing as a perfect election. There is just no such thing. Little things happen, and it's generally human error. But at any rate, the foul up did not affect the rates. But out of transparency, the Ada County clerk told everybody, the news and everybody, here's what we did. And so the person that lost has just been raising holy heck over it, even though if the little bit of discrepancy there would not have affected that race. What I'm telling you is county clerks in Idaho are honest. We want the same thing you do. You know, I was brought up as a flag waving American, and a lot of relatives that have fought for this country. I don't want to see anything go bad here. And I have a crew here. You know, I have no idea what their political affiliation is. I don't care. All I want to know is they're honest and they do their job. And that's all they want to know out of me, that I'm honest and I do my job. We have enough people that are around this office that there's no funny business. Everything we do, there's more than one person there. There's at least two, if not more. So, you know, and if I'm sounding a little bit passionate here, it's because I am. It makes me really angry when we're accused of doing something that we did not. Some of these reports that come out are patently false, and it's been proven that they're false. And still, here, you know, I told somebody the other, in fact, I put it on my website. There's three groups of people when it comes to election integrity. Number one, we don't have a problem in Idaho. Number two, well, I've seen enough that I kind of question it. Number three is, you're all corrupt, I don't believe a thing you say. Those are the three groups we have right now. And I have to tell you, I'm getting a little tired of it. We're very happy to have you here. This is the kind of thing, exactly what we want to do, to show what we're doing, how we're doing it, the process, the system, and some folks that come down and can see that, get a demonstration, and go out there, and when you're talking to these folks at the coffee shop or whatever, say, you know what? I was down at the Canyon County Elections Office. I saw how they do it, and it looks like they're doing it right to me. I would really appreciate it if that's what comes out of this. So again, thank you for being here.
Is the, you've got this online, is it being recorded?
Yes.
So you can come, we can tell
It's on
people if you
YouTube
want
right
to
now.
see.
It's
It'd probably get pretty boring, but yes. They could.
I would think the question should be of interest.
Yeah, well, it's all interest, but it's, how long we've been going, for.
A half hour.
Or, you know,
I was gonna say, it's 8 o'clock.
Well, and the
It's
one
8
thing that I can tell you is
That's wrong.
that if you guys, all of us left and he was the only one in the building and you guys asked him to pull this and try and get it counted and tell you results, he wouldn't know how to do it. And that's not because he doesn't have the capacity to do it. It's because he doesn't have the knowledge to stay away from it and not be involved in it.
No touchy.
Yeah,
That's
So-
what you have these guys here for.
and I hear a lot about Amish voting. How many of you guys would trust someone to count $1 million you just won by hand? No machine, no record, no log, no way to tell? Anybody?
When you hand count paper ballots, they count over, and it doesn't have to be that many, even a couple thousand. They have a heck of, some counties had a rule, nobody leaves until the count comes out right. And sometimes they've had to leave because it's still, they're 1 or 2 or 3 off. These machines actually do a totally accurate job, 2,000, whatever it was, ran through there right on the dot 2 times in a row. You can't get humans to do that.
No.
I took a tour of the Ada County one last month. I had all these questions too. I kept hearing all these things coming out from, last year, 2 years ago, whatever. And after leaving there, I was quite confident in the election process.
Well, I always say, if you still don't believe it, come work with us. What position do you want to do? Because I don't have anything to hide. I'll train you. We'll walk you through. You can go through all day long as much as you want. You can do early voting on election day. You can be here on election night. But whatever you need to do to feel confident as a candidate.
We want people to see it, yes, absolutely.
I would encourage, because that's what I did, was help with the last presidential election, with the early voting, election day, came in here, because you guys had moved me to different spots and helped with the absentee stuff as well. And it's the best way, anybody that has questions to be working it, it's paid to be there, and you could see exactly what's happening.
So you were satisfied with what you saw, everything was on the up and up? Yeah.
So we're here because we're part of a group called Community Impact Team in Patricia Valley. So we watched it at Ada County, as Lori said, and then also tonight with you guys. And I think we can tell our groups that we're fairly confident that, at least Ada County, Canyon County, don't be worrying anything about.
Okay, we're gonna spend another hour because I don't like the word fair.
Yeah.
Where's your potty? I have to go.
You've been wanting to ask a question for quite a while.
Okay,
I can't hold it only so.
on
Right
a,
through
on
this door.
Okay.
a whole different area. So let's see, when you're getting ready to count those papers over there, somebody actually spills coffee on. How does your machine count that?
We don't count those ones, we have to duplicate them, or adjudicate them, which means, and we have a log for everything. There's a log, and you have to literally write the time you started and the time that you ended, and it says duplicate on one with a number on it, it says original on one with the number on it. We go through and redo the ballot.
It happens all the time with absentees. Coffee, spaghetti sauce, you name it, chocolate cake. We get them in here.
Coffee table.
They
We're not
come
gonna
in
run
red
those through the machines and plug them up. So yeah, they're just redone.
Sometimes even little things block it. If they rip the barcode funny, if it gets folded weird and it just won't run through the machine right, we end up having to redo quite a few ballots by the end of it. But there's always the original log, and then there's always the duplicate, and there's always a log telling you how many there are and what times and everything.
Do you have standard batch counts that you feed through, or do you just?
I grab about the batches that I was doing. There's not an exact amount. I would have to sit here and count them individually. They come in stacks of thousands. So I grab probably 1.5 inches of ballots every time. It depends on the election though and how the ballots come back. So a lot of times if they're folded weird, it won't take big batches. So sometimes we do tiny batches just to get it to not jam the whole time. So we always encourage you to fold your ballots neatly when you put them back in your absentee envelopes.
The other cool thing about these is if it can't read it, it will actually tell you the number that so say you put 55 ballots in and number 40, the image was a little messed up or it couldn't read it, it'll say number 40 is not legible or there's an issue with number 40. Anytime I've gone through and counted, it's exact on the where the ballot is. It's number 40.
And it tells you what's wrong with the ballot. Barcode won't read or like.
And you have to rerun the whole batch?
I do rerun the whole batch. We don't count any batches that don't go through perfectly. And so I'll pull that one out and that will go in the duplicate pile that needs to get redone. We'll run the batch again without that one in it.
How long is when you train somebody to be a poll watcher, how long is that?
It depends right now because of the primary. We have to talk about party affiliation and how you obtain your ballot. Because there's open primary and closed primary and explaining all of that. It's anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, depending. It just, where's your knowledge base, how many people are in the class, how many questions are thrown at me. But right now, because of the primary 2 to 3 hours, I have had them down to an hour, just depending, going over basic election information.
Now you're talking poll watcher or poll worker?
Either or.
So poll watchers, we don't train. Poll workers, we train.
Yep. And that's like a 2 hour.
2 to 3 hour training.
I'm gonna do one or the other, I'm just not sure yet. For 8 counties, sorry.
That's okay.
And I'm not sure how their trainings work.
I don't know either.
We do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for your hard
I have-
work.
I have a comment. I don't want to interrupt. I appreciate what you guys have done because, and I personally don't want to take and sound like I'm accusing when I ask a question. All I'm wanting is some coherent answer. And one of the problems with answering without a demonstration, without seeing the paperwork or the math or whatever, is you're taking a person's word for it.
Yes.
It's kind of like a subjective answer. Yes, I did it. Well, where's the proof? Where's
Right.
the evidence?
Right.
And so I don't want to sound like I don't believe you.
No.
I appreciate,
No.
I mean, you've demonstrated that you care very much about honesty, accuracy, and that is huge. I mean, very, very, very appreciated
Thank you.
So please don't take.
No, I'm not, by the way, and so I hope I didn't make it sound like that. By virtue of you folks are here asking these questions and looking, I'm not putting you in the group of you're all corrupt and I don't believe anything you say. Otherwise, if that was the case, you wouldn't be here, right? So you're here and we appreciate that totally, and I appreciate your comments. So, yeah, it's the old, I think Mark Twain said it. If you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said because the truth is always the truth.
And this is why it was a little bit problematic when I contacted my legislator and was concerned about the compelling information that I'm getting over here. And I'm being told, well, if everybody did what we did in Idaho, they wouldn't be having the problem. Well, show me the stuff, show me the information, validate what you're saying. And I knew you do that.
Good.
And so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, good, thank you.
It's
Folks, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really, hey, it was really exciting to have this many people here, where we normally have none.
You know, like it's been a pleasure.
I don't think we've officially.
Right.
Adrienne, Mike's wife.
Okay. Well, I assume you probably were.
And that's front and back, because I printed it on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it goes from the time it leaves our office, to set up, to election day, to tear down, and then it comes back to our office, and that's specific to Canyon County. So, and we did that, one, to show chain of custody, but also it helps because we'll have post-election audits by the state, so then we can just show further
Now, this is the report.
No, this is actually what we complete to show chain of custody.
Okay.
So this just shows every step of the way. Once it leaves our custody, we know exactly what's going on. We'll be able to identify it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. It,